Welcome back to another edition of Dogging It. I am Molina Mike, and I'm joined with Michael Panozzo of Billiards Digest. Mike, my man, how are you, buddy?
Good, good. Just trying to keep up with all the news.
Tons of stuff going on, Mike. I heard from the U.S. Open draw being released to some news about Matchroom adding more ranking events to adding ranking events here in the States, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
But a lot of questions to be asked, and I'm sure we'll get some answers here in the next few weeks. But tons of stuff to touch base on, Mike.
yeah. You know, Probably the easiest place to start is the U.S. Open. They released the players list last week and did the draw, which I thought was pretty interesting. Really stacked field. Uh, One of the best. It's up there with the best, don't you think?
No, without a doubt. I mean, you're always going to have that kind of prestige when you have a matchroom ranking, when you have a matchroom event. But then you have one with this kind of history, and it just seems like that all the players in the world are now able to be traveling. At least minus China. But it looks from the Filipinos to the Europeans, and of course, even the Americans are traveling. Surprisingly, right? Because they
Yeah,
never
yeah, yeah.
travel.
Yeah,
But
and the Taiwanese are going to be at the U.S. Open. So it's when you look at the players who aren't going to be there, it's really pretty much limited to Wu and a couple of the Chinese players. But all the other heavyweights are all lined up, right?
I mean, you can't go and brush Wu under the rug. Last time we saw him at a U.S. Open, he was in a final,
Yeah, no, no,
attempting to
no,
go
no.
and come
It's
back and
it's
foul and making a foul that I'll never forget in my life.
yeah, it's tragic that they're not here, but realistically, those are the only couple of players who aren't in this field. If you wanted to look at putting together the most stacked lineup you could put together, so it's pretty exciting. Should make for great stuff. I love. I was trying, you're kind of like going through round one. Round one, it's all the seeds against the cupcakes. That's fine.
I
Probably a
wouldn't
couple
go that
upsets.
far, Mike. I would not go that far. Not at this event. I mean, typically that's what you're going to go and expect. Is you're going to expect the big dogs to kind of chomp on the dead money. But I tell you what, there was a couple of intriguing matchups and a couple of little trap games that I saw browsing through that first round.
Tell me a trap game.
Well, let me bring up that damn. Send me the link first, buddy. I mean, before you go and put me on the spot here. I just remember what I saw yesterday as I was looking through it.
Yeah, I was looking through the early matches. You might be a little more dialed in on some of the trap games. I did see a couple of just weird ones where these guys travel from together from some different part of the world and they play each other in the first round. I mean, that's always kind of brutal.
Well,
Uh,
just taking a look. I mean, you got like
so Jason
Carlo.
Foster, who won between Lee Van and Arcolo? Because I watched it to 28-28. Um, and I was just curious to see who won that. So if you can post up there who won Lee Van versus Arcolo, it was a race to 39 ball that they just finished up, which is what 4:30 in the morning Manila time.
What
Nice
was the
work.
race to?
Race to 30.
Oh wow.
So
And it was
yeah,
28-28 whenever you couldn't hang
yeah.
around for the last two games.
Arcolo snuck off with the win, which Lee Van was up 28-26. Then he was up
Wait a minute, Mike.
28-27 and was
Mike, hold
running
on.
out.
Time out. Time out. You dipped out at 28-28 going to 30.
Hey, when my dog calls me and says, let's go on
What are
the
you
air, I
doing, man?
drop everything and get right on.
Show some heart, man. Oh, for me. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then in that case, no, we're gonna let you slide. Then, Mike. In that case, I didn't realize that's what it was. Well, then it's my fault. I dogged you for sure.
But anyway,
Um,
a great match.
actually,
Uh, but
Dennis
yeah,
says that Lee Van's the best money game player in the Philippines. If you ask him who's the best gambler, he
really.
says Lee Van snap call. That's his
Well,
go-to.
I thought Lee Van had him buried at 28-26, and then Dennis won the last four, which is what Dennis does when his back's against the wall, right?
Well, I mean, they're putting on some pretty intriguing matchups out there in the
Yeah,
Philippines on Sharks. They're bringing in players from all over the world. I think Darren's coming up next for them. I think they got him
yeah,
playing like Bustamante. Cheng Jun Lin's going to be facing Carlo Biato,
yeah.
if
It's like the
memory
old
serves me correct.
warm-up match, right?
Yeah, no kidding, right? Well, they still play pretty sporty. And I mean,
So I'm looking through the U.S. Open. trying to
I
see.
got it up so
Trying
you
to,
guys can go check it out on Q Score. If you go to
yeah,
qscore.com,
yeah, yeah.
search US
Trying to
Open,
find the trap games in
hit
there,
the
but
upcoming. Okay, well, hold on a minute. Second round, you got a potential Carlo Biotto versus Christina Takacs. You think she can
yeah,
go
second
and
round
knock
for
out?
sure. Yeah,
You know,
that tall order for sure.
I'm curious,
Uh,
Mike. Chang Long Lin, is that Chang Jun Lin and they just misspelled
no,
it? Because
there's
if
two of them.
so,
Yeah,
it's not.
yeah. Cheng. There's
Because there's a Robbie Capito opponent from Taiwan, and they have it Chang Long Lin, and I'm just
right.
curious that if it's
It's different.
misspelled, oh,
It's
it's
different.
somebody else.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, anybody from Taiwan is going to be dangerous, and him facing Robbie Capito, that could be a potential
yeah,
upset.
possibly. Capito's playing really well, obviously.
Brandon
Um,
Schuff against Johan Chua. You know, Brandon's done pretty good here
yeah.
at the U.S. Open. Let me just take a look here. There was a few that I remember seeing. Alan versus Marcel Price.
Now you're talking second round.
No, these are all first round
These
matchups
are
I'm
all
taking a
first
look
round.
at.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see
The
here.
second rounders, there's some funny ones that can jump into the second round. I know the second round could be Chris Melling and Billy Thorpe. That'd be an interesting little matchup.
I mean that
Uh,
matchup could have a lot of ramifications if Billy is vying for a
yeah,
potential wild card pick in this year's
yeah.
Moscone. He's gonna have to take down the likes of Chris Melling, who hasn't played 9 ball and I don't even know when.
Kazakis against Atencio, possibly second round. Um, there's some good ones. Obviously, I started going a little further out than that, and
Yeah, Mike texted me his final four when like the draw hit Facebook. 2 minutes later, Mike's texting me his final four
all right.
instantly.
No, I just loved it. We're looking at a fourth round, which would be to get to the final 16, I believe, um, with Federer and Filler.
I mean, it doesn't get much more
That would
heavyweight
be,
than
how
that.
big would that be? I mean, that would be, the loser would have to go win another match on the loser's side to get back into that final 32. I think that's what they're doing, right? Are they going down to final 32 for single elimination?
Probably so. Would be my guess, unless it's
Yeah, I
64, but
tried to
that
look
seems
it
a
up
little
on the
deep.
Matchroom site, and it wasn't telling me. So if it's final 32, 16 out of the winner's side, 16 out of the loser's side, um, that match between Filler and
Well, but
Gorst.
if they get to the 32, that means they're going to redraw.
Yeah, to the 32, which is 16 on the winners, 16 on the losers.
Right.
This would be a winners brown match
Oh, okay.
between
Take
Federer and Filler.
to get to 32, you mean?
Correct.
I got you. Well, who do you
And
like?
well, I don't know, but you know what I
What do you
don't
mean you
like?
don't know?
I don't like being on the winner's side of that 16 and seeing the loser of that match coming at me from the other side in the redraw.
I mean, and that's going to be basically an early, playoff match for you right then and there,
Oh God,
facing two of the top
that's what
guys.
happened at the U.S. Open several years ago when Filler won. When Filler came out of the loser's side and Wu came out of the loser's side, and they drew into Shane and Jason Shaw.
Jason
Right?
loved that, by the way.
Drilled them both.
Jason loved that. Yeah.
Drilled them both.
Oh, that's right. Wu beat Shane. I
Yeah,
remember it
Wu
was
beat
at
Shane, and then
Mandalay.
Filler drilled Shaw, and so much for going through the first bracket undefeated. So what happens when something like Filler plays Federer in winners bracket is someone's not going to like the other side of it when they have to redraw.
A lot of people are going to be watching this year's U.S. Open because of the Moscone Cup, options that are going to be available. Earl Strickland's facing a Taiwanese player in the very first round of the U.S. Open, so that's something to be watching as well. But you're right, Mike. I mean, there's so many intriguing matchups that are going to happen that could potentially happen if that Federer and Filler matchup comes to fruition. I mean, we had
Oh
Emily
man,
on not too long ago.
it'll be on one of the side tables.
That'll be table 3, right? Then you got to go
Yeah,
buy tickets to the U.S. Open,
table
right?
2 with no announcers.
Yeah, no kidding, right? But no, I mean, we had Emily on, and she was one of the only ones that we heard say that she doesn't think that Federer ought to be able to be picked for this year's Moscone Cup. Now, he is eligible, and a lot of people,
Yeah.
myself included, and you as well, like his chances of making this team. But if you're going to make that team, I tell you what, a win over Josh Filler is a way to go and stamp your way on, in my opinion, Mike.
Yeah, I understood where she was coming from, and it's an argument that I made when the topic first came up was, do you what are you saying to the players who've gone to all the events and beat themselves up all year to get a chance to be on Moscone Cup to jump over them with someone like Filler? The other side of that is it's someone like Filler. So, you just got to take it like a man and say, okay, the guy's better than me. Go ahead and take him. But I do think, say, someone like Federer. I'm sorry, I said Filler. But just to throw a wild one out there, say Federer goes out 1-2, and not like 2 and out, but he's out by the third round. Wins 2 matches, loses 2, and he's home.
Right.
Does that affect his chances?
I mean, Alex said no. Alex said pretty definitively no. It would not go in effect whether or not he picks Federer as well, or I mean Federer on this year's team. Now, while everyone and their mother knows what a year that he's had, I don't think Federer's had all that well of success on the matchroom stage. If you go pick an event, World Pool Masters, World Cup of Pool, U.S. Opens, you name it. Where's Federer?
His first Moscone Cup, he was shaky on the first day.
He
was fine.
Good,
he was fine when they were winning, 9-1, and he played. Then he was freewheeling. But when he first got out there, it showed, and that was with no crowd. So, he's 3 years older. He's 3 years more mature. He's 3 years better. It would, if I was a captain and I wasn't worried about hurting anybody's feeling who's been playing in all these events, I don't think that I would think twice about picking Federer either.
I mean, I think you can make an argument either way, right?
Yeah.
While I think Federer is the best player in the world, and I think he's the best all-around player in the world. I was talking with Greg Sullivan, and we had
all-around. Yeah.
I mean, he won the all-around at Derby City, right? But under those conditions, those lights, that table, slick felt, polished balls, you name it, right? And then on top of that, he's going to have a crowd there, unlike any other.
Yeah.
There are going to be some questions, and rightfully so. Now, if one of the Europeans who's left out has something to go and say, like I told you last time, Mike, go call the guy out. You want, if you think he's taking your spot, go pick the game. And I'm sure Federer will gladly go and accommodate you if the bet is juicy.
Well, if you're trying to prove something,
if it's going to be a pissing contest, Mike, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, none of those guys is going to say, I think I'm just as good as Federer in a race to 59 balls. No one's going to say.
So what's the argument? I had a better year than Federer.
One of them's going to say, I play well enough to win 5 games in Moscone Cup based on the way I played this year. I played well enough to be one of the 5 players to play in this event. That's a different mindset than I'm better than Federer, right? So it depends on how you look at it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if I'm the coach, I want the best guy out there, no matter what.
100%.
Without a doubt. Who's going to give me the best shot? Who do I know is going to handle nerves, right? Federer's a gambler. Federer knows how to go and
the only way I see Federer not making it is if somehow or another the points get all screwed up to where Jason and Albin are both on the outside looking in. Then if you had 3 to pick 2 and you had Jason, Albin, and Federer, then I think
Federer's the first one out.
Any doubt he picks Albin and Jason. Don't you think?
I think Jason's a lock. I mean, I would bet a lot of money that Jason Shaw makes that team. Defending Moscone Cup MVP, you all know, what you're going to get from Jason. Even though you think you know what you're going to get from Federer on that stage, you really don't know because you haven't seen it. Where Jason's proven, now Jason hasn't had the year that Federer's had. Whether, I'd say that Jason's, I think, top 10 in points, if I'm not mistaken, right, Mike?
Well, yeah, he's not too far out.
Yeah. But it's all relative because it's top heavy with Europeans, on that ranking list. But I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Jason goes and makes that team, and the U.S. Open could have a lot of drama in that regard. I think it'll be more chalk than anything else. I would, just from an odds standpoint, I think it'd be tough. But boy, I tell you, I mean, I'm excited to go and watch it, Mike. I really am.
Yeah, it's gonna be great stuff. We were looking at some of these other matches too on the U.S. Open. You look at Team USA hopefuls.
There's a lot of guys who can go and make this team still, Mike. I mean, any one of these guys.
Well, you're looking at, if you're trying to run out a couple of matches, you figure you got to win 2 or 3 matches, to make a statement for yourself.
Yeah,
Third round, Shade Wolford could go against Ping Chung Ko.
little
Uh,
Co.
yeah, so that would be interesting. That would be,
I think a lot of these, and personally, I think a lot of the teams made up in my mind. I think decisions are made for the most part, but I think
for
that
Team
one
USA as well.
maybe number 5 is a little bit of an unknown. I think I'd imagine both these guys have like plans B and C. But I think for the most part, they know what 5 they want to go and take in there. This December, Wolford's kind of had a mixed year, Mike. For me, um,
Yeah,
I think he's got a really big opportunity to show something,
right.
on this stage and really end the year with on a positive note. But you got to go and deliver, and these Americans are going to be up against it. I mean, you mentioned Billy and Chris. I mentioned Earl playing a Taiwanese player, his very first one, and I think Earl's got a good shot as well, just from a drama standpoint. Tyler Steyer, I'm sure, is still vying for one of those spots. He's going to have to go and take it, if so. But really, it's if you want it bad enough, and if you can go and earn it, you can go and get your ass on that team if you're an American player still.
Yeah, yeah. I think that fifth spot is to me pretty much wide open for someone to go take if they can make a deep run. Uh, but if you look at some of those outside fringe guys, how much of a run do you think they have to make?
Yeah, no, it's
Is
going to
it?
be.
I mean, is it you have to finish top 16, or is it if you beat someone really high level? Is that enough?
Well, I mean, resumes matter, Mike. I remember when Oscar was playing filler at last year's international. I thought he had a chance to go and make that team if he wins that match. You tell me he's not going to make that team after he beats Josh Filler.
Yeah,
And I'm sure he was aware of it. I think he mentioned as much to me before, but I don't know. I mean, to me, it's you got more to lose than you do to win, right? Like you really got to do something special in order to go and take one of those spots. But these guys who are maybe in a good position, like if you just go and crumble, I mean, good luck to you. You know,
but what
if
happens
you
if
if
Billy
one of the
goes 2 and
Americans, why don't you answer that first and then I'll answer?
Well, I mean, everybody's talking about him like he's a lock. With the fourth pick. So if that's the case, I'm just curious if he went 2 and out and a couple of guys, the other guys made a big run. I
Like
still
who?
think he gets.
Like who? Give me a name.
Well, you could look at a Shane Wolford. You could look at a Josh Roberts. You could look at different guys like that. But I think you'd still end up picking um, Billy because of his experience on the team and in that arena. If you're going to be guessing with number 5, and if one of your top 3 is Oscar, who's played in a couple of these events,
Right.
um, you know, you got to be really careful when you start picking, too many guys who haven't played before.
I agree. If it's that close, I'm going with the guy who's been there before. I'm going with the guy who is not going to go and shake. I'm going with the guy who can motivate the team. I'm going with the guy who's electric for fans, and who can go and inspire in Billy Thorpe if it's that close. So I think Wolford's got a lot to go and kind of earn, where maybe Billy doesn't, right? Because if you go and
Right.
consider all those other intangibles or factors, but I tell you what, if both of them come up short, Mike, I mean, then what? Then who's your 5?
Will you tell me you're 5? You're picking tomorrow. Who are you picking?
Well, I mean, obviously Shane Sky are a lock. I think Oscar's a lock now. I do. I don't think what happens at the U.S. Open for Oscar is going to make much of a difference. I think he's going to be one of those 5 players out there. As far as number 4, um, it's tough between what I've been hearing through the rumor mill versus what I would want to go and see out there. Um, I think I would like to go and see. I think I would like to go and see Earl out there, Mike. I just would. I'd like to have him. I like a good story whenever I watch sports, and I think Earl having that shot at redemption would be great. Plus, I think he can be a car wreck as well. So I'd love to go and maybe see that happen. Out there in Vegas. I'm not gonna lie. And then the number 5, hell, give me Billy. you
Yeah.
know, just for
So
the
your
excitement
so
factor.
your wild card pick, your wild card pick is Earl.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, if you're telling me between him and Josh Roberts or a guy like that, um, Josh hasn't played any Moscone Cup ranking events. I know he's playing in Sandcastle. I know he's playing the U.S. Open. And if he had a good run, would you take him into consideration? Sure. But if it's close and then it's between Earl and Josh, yeah, I don't know. You
Yeah.
know, so it remains to be seen. But it's gonna make. That's why you got to go and watch the U.S. Open, right?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun watching the U.S. Open. There's going to be a lot of American players looking over their shoulder when they go to play. I think there's a lot more pressure on the U.S. players than there is on the European players. Um, as much as a lot of the European players really want it and want to try to sneak into that rankings
I don't know
points
if I agree with
list.
that, Mike, because I think there's a lot of young, hungry Europeans that feel they're deserved and they want to put themselves on the map or on the
I think
radar.
they kind of see the writing on the wall more than anything, though,
Well,
don't you?
I mean, yeah, but it's good to go and start next year with a good,
Yeah,
with a good impression, right? You can have guys like an Oliver or a Vitali who's playing great right now. There's just so many guys who are playing fantastic pool that maybe don't get the respect that they're deserved. Even veterans and like a Niels or I don't think Kachi's got a chance in hell making this team, but if he were to go and make a deep run, he'd certainly make an argument, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but that's why we want to go and watch, and I think it's going to be a great pool. I'm excited to go and see this break again, and these kind of what I would consider underdogs on paper, maybe kind of steal a set here or there, and
yeah.
maybe a Cinderella happen.
It's going to be a great event for sure.
Well, I know Mike, you got to run here in a minute.
No, no, I'm good for a little bit, but yeah, yeah. What else you got?
Before we get you out of here, let's talk a little bit about some other matchup news that came out. We got two events that were added on to the matchroom rankings umbrella, allegedly, supposedly. Uh, One of them being Derby City, which I don't think there's any question as to whether or not that's going to be on there. As far as the format, I don't think much is going to go and change, if any, from Derby City last year, as far as I understand. I know you were trying to find out on your end whether or not the format for Derby would go and change. But the main
Yeah,
question that a lot of people had, and things that I was hearing online and from friends of mine who were speaking with Mike Zuglin, that is, was that Turning Stone is going to be added or is added, but they will not change the format. And that's different than what we heard from Emily when we had her on not too long ago.
yeah, yeah. And I did send her a note after that came out, just out of curiosity to ask. Not trying to start a fire or anything, but and didn't hear back.
Well, that
I
makes two of us, and I didn't hear back either, Mike.
well, I know she's pretty busy these days too,
Right.
but I did talk to Mike Zuglin for quite a while the other night, and he said he wasn't asked to change his format, and he's not changing his format, at least not now. And there's one thing that you cannot, you give Mike Zuglin credit for being his own guy. He's run, how many turning stones has he run? Just
Yeah,
ridiculous number of tournaments, and
for
he's
sure.
always played by his own rules. And because he doesn't like the politics of everybody doing, everybody telling him what to do. So, in a nutshell, he kind of basically said, "Listen, I would love to see uniformity in this, but I've been around this long enough and run tournaments long enough and know the players enough to know that they all say yeah, 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 and 6 months later they figure it out and they want to change something." So he said, at this point, I'm not changing what I do. If they want my event for the points, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine. And I'll keep my eye on it. And if this goes on over a period of time and everybody is totally dialed into this format, then he would consider changing it. But he's run Turning Stone for years and years and years. He's not going to make a knee jerk change now to his format and then next year change it back or it gets changed to another thing. He said he's just not going to do that, and that to me makes all the sense in the world. I have no problem with his logic
I was thinking
on that.
when you say it like that, it's hard to go and argue, right? Because it sounds reasonable. But
Yeah,
I'll
I
also
mean,
say, but I'll also say this: I don't think pros should be racking for pros. You know, I just don't. I don't want to see a guy go and rack and another guy bitch for 10 minutes about a gap in a rack. I do not want to go and see that ever in my life, ever,
right.
ever, ever in my life. Do I want to go and watch that again? So I
And I
think
think
there's a
if it gets to the point where everybody agrees with that and everybody's doing it one way, then I think someone like Mike Sutherland would do it that way too.
right.
But he's not gonna flip flop back and forth based on the whims
I can agree. I can
of this
understand that and
outside
respect that.
group, right? And
Yeah.
so you got to respect him for that. And he's like I said, he's his own guy. He's just an interesting dude, and has done a lot of good for the game. And like I said, he doesn't want anybody else's politics. He's running the events the way he likes them.
You know, let's just be real. The field this year was terrible at Turning Stone. So there's upside for him in regards to getting the guaranteed
Yeah,
the best players in the world showing up there.
his January tournament is usually pretty good because you have a lot of foreigners in for a lot of foreign players, international players in for Derby, and you can add a couple of events into it. His fall event, um, or late summer event, yeah, not so much, and that's so. Um, if it's a points event next year, I'm curious to see how much it changes. It's been a points event in the past.
Yeah, but this is
But
different. I mean,
that
it's
was
more
just a points
points
event
event.
for U.S. players. It was not, it wasn't this big matchroom ranking system. So, you know, yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah. I mean, we'll try to get Mike on. I don't think he will because of yours
Yeah,
truly.
he said he wasn't really interested. He said, he started running tournaments because he was tired of politics. He just wants to continue doing it his way. And if everybody at some point agrees to one way, he'll change then. But for now, he's just running his event the way he runs his event.
I,
And because he knows he's going to fill up either way, right? He's always filled up,
he has, and
and early, and with people who pay early. He doesn't have to wet nurse someone to the registration table. So, if it's not broke, you don't fix it.
I mean, you can't argue, man, for wanting to go and stick with what he's had to be successful, right?
Yeah,
I get it. I completely respect that. But we'll see. We got plenty of time between now and then. Hopefully, we can go and get some more information. In the meantime, it's great because now we don't got to hear American players go and complain about, oh, there's not enough events here in the States and all these other things
yeah.
you go and
Well,
hear online. I mean, now
yeah.
you
Well,
got,
I appreciate that. Matchrooms trying to get more events into the states because they know that they're coming up short here as far as the points go.
right.
So, and they just can't keep adding events that they're running. Another $200,000 event here and there, especially coming over to the states to produce it. So, you look at the U.S. events that are worth trying to tap into to be a partner on the point system. Turning Stone is still a pretty good
Makes all
option.
the sense in the world.
Yeah,
All the
I
sense in the
think
world,
I
Mike,
think
for sure.
Turning Stone a better option than Derby, to tell you the truth, because the Derby format is just so screwy.
I
That
kind of
whole
like it, Mike.
buyback thing is just, I mean, as far as pro
Buyback.
events go,
Yeah.
relatively short races, buyback. It's a little too bizarre for me as
Uh,
far as being a legit ranking event.
I mean, I'm sure they can go and get more streamlined, without a doubt. Um, but it's hard to argue what they've gone and created. And we got Greg
Well,
Sullivan here. So
same thing with Zugland, right? I mean, they both
yeah,
have their own events that they created. They run on their own. They don't need a lot of people, interfering with it. But they'll play along if you want them to an extent.
yeah, and for me, like I don't think it's a deal breaker, right? Like if they want to go and keep whatever format they want, as long as it's 9 ball, 9 foot table, I'm good with it for the most part. I cannot stand that damn racking. I can't. I can't. Cannot go and get it out of my mind. It's that part of it is brutal to watch. But this is what I talked about before, Mike, when it came to the U.S. Open, right? Whenever we were talking about them bringing over that break from the European onto the U.S. Open, I kind of like the the history, and part of that is the game, and the way they've ran the U.S. Open for the last however many decades. I kind of want to see it kept the same. Although I do love the new break, um, but we'll see.
Well,
You
I
know,
wanted to see, the U.S. Open stay the same even more than you did, to the extent where I wanted to see them keep double elimination all the way through. To me,
yeah,
that
but
was,
that's
and they stopped that. And to me, that's always one of the things that made it the hardest tournament in the world to win, and not alternating breaks and things like that. So the old U.S. Open to me was the hardest tournament in the world to win. And if you don't think it was, all you got to do is talk to last year's winner, and
they'll tell you.
or at the international.
Yeah.
which is kind of the stepchild of the U.S. Open, was Albin, and Albin was
Alvin.
the first to say, when it switched from double elimination to single from 32 or 64 in, then it made it an easier tournament. It gave me a better chance. When they changed it to alternating break, it gave me a better chance. Before last year, Albin never did anything at the International or the U.S. Open when it was Norfolk. Never. So so I missed that fact that there were things about the U.S. Open that made it the hardest tournament to win, which was what made it for me the premier title in pool, and a lot of that's changed.
Well, we're still gonna have a great event, October 10th to the 15th. Matchroom's putting it on in Atlantic City. Daz, and you guys can go and watch it if you're not going to be out there. We're going to have a ton of stuff coming up. I'm going to be busy. I don't know if Mike's going to be available, but there's a bunch of stuff going on out here at Hard Times. Tony's in action in the other room. I think Oscar's going to go and play Jose Perica, a big set of some one pocket. John Schmidt's in the room. There's just a ton of guys that are walking in and out of here. It's going to be busy. It's going to be hectic. You guys can check out the stream.
You'll have no shortage of guests for the weekend.
No, that's for sure. We're going to stay busy, Mike. So if you get some time, I'll be hollering at you. And we hope you guys can tune in, and we'll see you guys soon.